thanks again for agreeing to chat, Jacob Sandler. We were classmates in high school, and I kind of hit you up a few weeks ago, or we ended up chatting about some opportunities. But anyway, I wanted to talk to you because I've seen your posts and things on LinkedIn. So I know you have your hand in a lot of different pots, whether it's you're a founder of your company Last Draft, and you recently started something called the Project Shop, which honestly I don't know too much about, so it'd be cool to figure out what that is. And just kind of creeping on your LinkedIn profile, I see you have a lot of different um companies you're working with, whether it's part-time or as a founder. But before we get into that, how are you? How are things in Ontario today? The mask mandates have ended for most places, so that's exciting.
Yeah, that's definitely exciting. And thanks for this opportunity. Actually, it's really nice to be doing this with you. I think it's really cool that you started and been running this podcast. It's something I've seen online as well. Seen some former classmates there, and I think that's what kind of like piqued my interest originally, was just seeing some names I hadn't seen in a while. So this is pretty cool. And um, yeah, I'm looking forward to uh, being out in some environments, not needing to wear masks. Although I think like in others, I'm probably going to continue to, at least for the next little while. And yeah, like I think you're going to make me do something in this podcast, which I always find a little challenging. And that's try to connect the dots of the various different things I do in my personal and professional life together. And I guess they do all tie together somehow, but it always feels like a challenge verbally describing that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does because I am currently looking for full-time work, and I have like a couple of interviews going. But whenever I get into interviews or I'm chatting with friends over coffee, they always ask like, "So what are you looking for? What's your career plan?" And I'm just like, I mean, if it's a friend, you say something like, well, it's like, well, how can you decide what you're going to do in 5 years? Because I feel like nowadays, as far as a career, it's it's not really looking like, especially in the tech field, that you can kind of commit to a career right off the start. Um, Obviously, that depends based on the industry, but like for me, I like I like electronics. I like handling them, testing, troubleshooting, helping people figure out like computer issues, stuff like that. So that's more like troubleshooting side. But on the engineering side, there's design and things like that, which I haven't had success with. So it's like, you can't really foresee that you're going to commit to design for like 20 years or whatever. But anyway, yeah, the point is that it's hard to kind of clearly define like, oh, I did my bachelor's because I saw a career in power systems or something like that. That's actually a bad example because that's probably one area where you can plan out a career. But anyway, um, I'm kind of
it,
rambling there. So yeah.
that's okay. It's interesting because I totally agree with you. And I mean that, not just on a personal level finding it hard to commit to something, but also entire industries just changing so quickly as far as what jobs actually look like and what job possibilities are available. And you read any sort of like business journal or like Wired or like I guess tech news too, and they talk all about the qualities of adaptability and being I guess like agile in your personal professional path, being more relevant than being specialized, or that like being that our
Mhm.
generation's kind of career prospects. And something you said about it being challenging to like commit to 5 years ahead, it just made me think of when I was in university, and I got a job working at Lululemon in retail, and I was doing that. I did that actually a bunch of times, and still kind of credit Lululemon's, I guess, approach to training their retail staff with a lot of stuff that I took away and brought into my business, and like becoming I guess like launching, like really influenced even the decision to start my own business. But their Lululemon's really big on goal setting, and they had us do all this goal setting, and I was like 20 at the time, and you have to do 10-year goals first and then work backwards to 5 and 1.
Wow.
And I just remember being like, I can't do 10-year goals. Like there's no way. Like I have no idea what I'm going to be doing 10 years from now, and being almost like not angry, but like frustrated that they were
Yeah.
trying to like trying to make me see that far in the future. um, but I don't know. Now when I make 10-year goals, because I totally drank the Kool-Aid eventually, I feel like I avoid saying I will be doing specifically this, and instead say like I won't be working more than this many hours a week on like my primary like job, and it will have the flexibility to allow me to go anywhere. And I think like I don't know, that's the loophole that I do my goal setting around now.
That makes sense because that's what I was thinking while you were talking about that. Because so I did part-time retail at Chapters. We didn't have 10-year goals, but we had daily goals. So for example, you could choose your goal if it was like get 3 people to sign up for the reward system or the rewards program. And if you met the goal, you got a gumball, and then I think you also got to pick a prize out of a paper bag. And I never won, but that was cool. It was something to strive for. But yeah, as far as long-term goals, it makes more sense to have targets. Like it's not necessarily you're trying to hit a bullseye, but it's like I want to be on the dartboard somewhere. So like you said, I don't want to work, or I only want to commit so many hours to uh whatever it is, whether it's a personal project or one of the businesses that you have going on. So yeah, I mean, from that perspective, for me, it's like, let's see, I'm just thinking out loud. So in 10 years, as far as work, it would be ideal to, work 4 to 6 hours a day, make a decent living, have a couple of side businesses, possibly this kind of podcast or something in this space, whether it's my own thing or helping others start something up. Yeah, so that makes sense. I like that. And yeah, you mentioned you drank the Kool-Aid eventually, which is, setting long-term goals. And so like how did that help you either start up or continues to help you manage your for example, let's just say last draft.
Yeah. Um, okay. So you're right that like the Kool-Aid I was referencing was eventually starting to make long-term goals. I think that's something that, really influences the potentiality of the businesses I founded. Like I'm a really strong believer that you need to have an idea of where you want to go for an organization or for yourself to actually move in that direction. Like almost without goals, I think it's very easy to remain more stagnant or to move in a like I guess get pulled in multiple directions, which is not necessarily a bad thing. And I think even in like the pursuit of goals, we get pulled in lots of different directions. But I guess that's why it's nice to have them. It keeps like a focus or like a sense of um, progression or like a measure almost, because once you get out of school you no longer have grades or assignments or these like yearly demarcations of like what sort of progress you've made. And I feel like without kind of setting markers of progress, then it's easy to either not feel like you're making any even when you are, just because you're not tracking, or to maybe not make progress. And I mean, if you're not aware of it, then I guess you could easily just, yeah, it could anyway, won't go down that rabbit hole. But even in the short term goal sense, I don't want to get woo woo too early in this podcast
Okay.
with like the idea of like you attract into your life the things that you like put out there want. But I do think when you know what you want and verbalize what you want or document what you want, you become much more sensitive to opportunities that kind of bring that in your
Yeah.
direction. And like, I don't think you need to use like language of manifestation to talk about that. I think you can just talk about like being, you know, we have all our five of our senses. We become attuned to what we're paying attention to. That just kind of makes sense from a practical and logical perspective too. And so um, when I started last draft, I had I was moving from Victoria, BC, back to London. I was moving because my partner was placed in London by a computer for her medical residency, and I didn't really want to move back to London, um, but I'd committed to, and I did want to kind of support her in her career. But I remember us being in Victoria. We were like downtown, and I just like said out loud, and I've been thinking about it. Like by this time next year, I'll be able to work from wherever I want to, whenever I want to, so that even if your career goes places, I can just like choose to be there without uprooting my whole life. Um, and within a year, I had launched Last Draft and was working completely remotely. And I some of that was there's definitely a luck component to that. There's like a pretty big luck component than that to that I can get into. But the other, aside from the luck, I think it was like I really knew that's what I was looking for. And so when an opportunity presented that allowed that, even though it was in an industry where I hadn't really worked before, and it was like doing a job that I didn't know that I would love. It was like that was the real focus goal at that time. And from that, I built a bunch of other things that I love. I think like it wasn't a job I would have stayed in forever, but it was a job that allowed, I guess, the fulfillment of that goal and the creation of new ones based on that like flexible lifestyle.
Yeah. One thing that is important from hearing that is that so you set this goal and it was in service to your relationship, and because uh your partner had to move, you kind of figured, well, this flexibility is good because uh I can I would like to work from anywhere, so we don't have to be separated. So the point I'm trying to make is that sometimes coming up with those clear ideas is really dependent on whoever is around you that's close to you, or your immediate circle of friends and family that are important to you. So that's kind of determining my pursuit of jobs. It's like I would like to stay close to family, so that affects the location you're looking at. I personally like going into an office, so I'm not necessarily looking for remote work.
Mm,
So that's why the physical location is important. And then it's like leveraging your education and skills. I did engineering, I'm good with technology. Okay, let's go and find something. The tricky part comes when you're looking for something more than what's practical. Um, Fulfillment is a word you used. That's pretty hard to find. And there's two trains of thought. One is you do whatever you need to do and you make it fulfilling. The other train of thought is you find, like, you see what you like, what you enjoy, and find something that fulfills you. Um, so anyway, it's hard to kind of figure that out sometimes. Uh, yeah. So those are just some thoughts on what I was thinking when you were talking about that.
have you experienced that before? Like the feeling fulfilled either in a career or in like I guess sorry, context where I'm coming from and saying that is I personally like really feel like our professions fit within our larger life box, not like they're two separate boxes. And so fulfillment, professional fulfillment, like I place really close to or overlapping with personal fulfillment,
Mhm.
and not like I personally feel fulfilled from work, but like I feel fulfilled in life and I have things like family and proximity to family. And I don't know, I just like believe work, it feels really important to me that work supports that. Um,
Mhm.
Not as much that work is necessarily like the source of all fulfillment. And I guess I was just curious if you've like, if you feel like you're looking for employment that provides the fulfillment or supports the fulfillment, or if you have like a philosophical belief around that. Um,
That's a great question. So it's just give me a few minutes to kind of lay that out. So I believe it the answer stems from like all the way back to public school and high school when you're choosing what to do after high school. So at that time, there were you always have friends who are passionate about some things. Um, like someone who plays the cello and has been playing it for 10 years. Like when they say I'm passionate about music, I'm like, I believe it. If you're spending hours and hours doing something, it's pretty clear from the outside that you kind of know what direction that person wants to go. Whereas for me, there was never like a clear like this is how I want to earn a living. So the way I chose engineering was that I went through a list of programs at uh, Western University here in London, which was UWO at the time, and I just like crossed off things I didn't want to do. What was left was engineering. And to be fair, both my parents have an engineering background, so I'm sure that played a part, but I was never forced to go in that direction. So anyway, I chose that. I thought it would be hard. That was one of the main reasons I decided to do it, for the difficulty of it. And it definitely was difficult and it pushed me and I learned a lot of things. After completing the degree and starting to work, the uh, salary was great. It's a great salary. It's enough to live happily in terms of like, you don't have to struggle for rent or food or everything's comfortable. And my full time job after graduating was in the town of Perth, which is about a 6 to 8 hour drive from London. So immediately I noticed just being so far away from family is was tough. So in terms of personal fulfillment that way, I learned that you know it. I like being close to family. It's makes me feel good. Otherwise, it's easy to get really sad and kind of lost in your thoughts. So in terms of the job I was doing there, it was cool. It was awesome. I didn't have many major complaints about it. But ultimately, I decided to leave the job uh, for two reasons. One was the family uh, distance, and the other was just some like personal existential thoughts and stuff. Like, what am I doing?
mm,
What's going on? Like, I'm never in a good mood. I have to figure it out. That's like a whole other thing. So anyway, the, at this point, it's been almost 4 years since that last full-time job. So at this point, the requirement is a salary because my savings are slowly coming to an end. So that's why at this point, it's like I got to leverage what I know and uh, make some money. So it looks like it's going to be kind of like a sine wave where you have like the peak was, 4 years ago, earning a good salary, doing what you know and supporting yourself. And eventually, I'm guessing I'll be coming back down to the whatever the opposite of a peak is. I should probably know this because I've studied sine waves a lot. But anyway, the bottom part, the trough,
I want to say
the valley.
valley because that's
Yeah.
like I'm a storyteller. But yeah, yeah.
So I'm gonna reach that valley or chasm where it's gonna be like, okay, so this the money's good. I'm pretty comfortable. Um, like I don't know if I'll necessarily have a question of fulfillment. This podcast is a way to get some of that fulfillment because
Mm.
I don't know how to make money, and that's something that love to learn in terms of starting a business. Uh, so before I go all over the place, I'll just kind of wrap that up. So yeah, at this point, it's like money is important, so I got to look for that, and the fulfillment will probably come like a year or two down the line. The question of that, but this is kind of staving me off that uh, lack of fulfillment. So I guess things are up in the air at this moment. Yeah.
I wonder if that like wave pattern starts to get like the waves are less big and they like are working towards like,
Oh
kind of
yeah.
being somewhere on what I don't know, whatever the middle line is. I just really relate to like you only really learn these things or what's important to you through experiencing it. And then sometimes it takes like big decisions like moving cities or like leaving jobs to go like realize the other side of that. And I feel like that's like going from one end to the other, and maybe that's just working towards like a clearer sense of what actually matters and being able to achieve that and have the best of both or all worlds at the same time. um if you were asking, I looked off to the side at one point there when you said you don't really know how to make money, because I was just feeling like, oh, I don't know, I don't really know how to do that either. Like, I don't know if I'm the best person to do that, because I think despite running a business and launching a second one of the things I think about often, especially when um, I'm financially stressed or the business is financially stressed, whether we're in like a growth spurt or we've just like learned something through what feels like an expensive mistake, is I feel like I could have done this faster, not done this because it doesn't feel done. I feel like I could have grown a business faster if from the beginning I'd just been focused on purely on like making sure it was financially viable, and thinking about it as like a source of just income, purely income, and finding the most efficient way to create income. And I mean, I'm not even going to say, I was going to say unfortunately, but I don't think it's actually unfortunate. That personally just wasn't where I was when I founded this 4 years ago, as far as like my personal values or knowledge or experience. Like, I think I was naive as to the realities of, your business really needs to be financially viable or you just don't have one. So like, I've learned that through it being really stressful. um, but also I was not prioritizing that like right at the beginning. I was prioritizing, I think, trying to create an organization or a career that provided a sense of fulfillment or that felt fulfilling like day in and day out. And I do feel like I've achieved that, especially lately, but that feels like it's been a slower financial curve than if I think I'd been just purely financially focused from the beginning. Now there's this weird, like, there was almost this naivety about financial reality of running a business and idealism about what a company culture, like team values could be. And through unfortunate and not mistakes, but like learnings on both of those tracks, those lines have like gotten closer together. And now my like understanding of what's necessary to run a business that is has financial security as well as like longevity is a lot more realistic and I think grounded in hard truths. And as well, my like understanding of how to balance, I think, my idealism with reality is a lot more grounded too. Um, and so I don't know, like making like if question figuring out I uh, mm, my short answer is that long term matters a lot more than thinking short term, because I think I wanted to believe that you could get rich overnight, or that, not whether it was getting rich or just like that things could happen overnight, whether I could pull an all-nighter and then I would like finish an expensive project. And the reality is like it's a marathon, not a sprint. Build business, having a job, like anything. And now I'm just like focused on trying to get enough sleep, because this is my ramble now. I'm just focusing on trying to get enough sleep, because you need to, I think, be thinking about like financial longevity, not just, I guess, today, tomorrow, or next week. Um,
Yeah.
and looking that far ahead involves also like taking care of yourself, like you're going to be there that far ahead, and you want to be in shape like a year from now for the next big phase, and not burnt out from like trying to sprint all the time.
Yeah,
I don't know
man.
how you're going to edit that.
Uh no, it's fine. It makes sense. There was some audio cutting out, but I think everything still makes sense altogether. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, so two problems I have, not with what you said, but while you were talking about that is, first of all, I have a romantic idea of what it is to run a business because I haven't done it,
Mm,
and I don't have anyone in my close circle of friends who are business owners. I'm slowly meeting those people. So I believe personally I believe that's a great asset to have someone who has done it, and you have like really immediate access to them. So one, I have a romantic idea of what it is to run a business, which is not going to help me. And two, I'm afraid to fail. And like you were talking about, make a really expensive mistake. So I see those as two hurdles to jump over. But it also will, I feel like there has to be a point where I have to have this need to start my own business, because I've learned from the past, I want to do a lot of things, and I've made long-term plans, whether it's a year or two, not 10 years. But just because you'll try something because it's cool doesn't mean you're going to stick with it. But when you have those moments in your life where it's like it's like a stamp in your experience, and that is something you can constantly refer back to for a drive. I don't know, I'm not explaining it right, but like sometimes you just know, like, I got to do this whether it works or not. I'm taking it as far as I can, but I haven't reached that point yet.
well, I mean, I definitely recommend it. It has been um, the biggest thing I've ever done as far as teaching me how to, I guess, like get myself to do stuff without being told to.
Mm.
I mean, you're running this whole podcast and that you just started that. So, like, maybe you don't suffer from the same problem I do. But I think, like, one of the things that became so almost hilarious from starting a business, and that also I think was made really visible when like COVID started a couple years ago, was we rely so heavily on institutions like school and then like employers, not just to provide us with like what we're supposed to be doing with our
Yeah.
time, but also with like telling us when we're supposed to eat and sleep and like get up in the morning. And if you start your own like business, if you're doing it on top of a job, then you're like probably fitting it around other things the same way you'd fit a project like this podcast in. But if you're doing it as your job, it's like you have to get up and do that in the morning, and no one's telling you to do that except your own sense of, oh, this is like what I'm supposed to do now if I want to make my life work like this. And that was like such a weird hurdle, but it felt like a hurdle. Like I think it took years like the first few years just for me to get myself to do the things that I needed to do to like make a business more efficient. And then to try and bring other people into that and build routines or create like I wanted to provide the opportunity of like flexibility and it being other people getting to choose when they worked and stuff like that too. And that was
Right.
really weird to see other people struggle with that and then be like, wait, we're all struggling because we have the option. Like we've been given flexibility and the option to decide this for ourselves. And that's actually way harder because our entire life has been structured for like someone else to kind of almost decide that for us or
Mhm.
so that was really weird one. There was something else that you said too. Um, oh, I don't know. I think like you were just talking about the romanticized version
Yeah.
and I feel like I mean, I still try to have some of that because I almost think it's important to pull that in because if you don't, I feel like if I don't pull the romanticized or idealistic version I still have into what I'm trying to do, then it's way too easy to just like succumb to the like I want it cash is king, but like it's not even cash, just the idea that like unless you have outside investment or savings, like you need to make more money than you spend. And it's just this like really like harsh
Mhm.
reality. And like, especially if you're paying other people or other people are on your payroll, you need to like know in advance far enough and be able to like make the decisions you need to make in order to make sure that that remains that way. And that just feels like a really kind of like harsh, cold reality
Yeah.
that is always there. And I want to bring some of my like romanticized versions of it can be more than this or different than this. Because if I just think about it that way, I don't really want to run a business anymore, to be honest. Um,
That that makes sense. Because yeah, it's cool to hear your perspective on it. So, well, actually, we've gone this far into it. So we talked about this once before, not today, but so what is Last Draft?
so Last Draft is a boutique marketing agency focusing on thought leadership and LinkedIn management. So I used a bunch of jargon there, so I'll expand on some of that. We work almost exclusively with business consultants, investors, and professional service providers who either work for themselves or work for kind of small organizations. And what makes the individuals or the clients that we work with unique is that um, the services that they provide rely on their personal expertise or the expertise of a small group of people in order to be carried out. So there's like value there. I guess there's like the value of what they're able to do for their clients is exists in the form of intellectual property that is in their brains. Like we work with experts. And so thought leadership is the idea of um, someone being a thought leader. So, like the a head in their space or a leader in their industry. And I think the thought part is like they're thinking ahead. So they're actually like on the cusp or curve of like new innovation, transformation within that industry. And what we do is basically work with individuals who identify with that and we manage their LinkedIn, we um, ghostwrite on their behalf. And uh, like when it comes to like what are the skills that we employ, we have become really good at extrapolating technical and kind of high level or advanced information and knowing learning enough fast enough to write as though we were an expert without actually having the expertise that our clients have. So there's a fair amount of collaboration. There's a good amount of like relationship management and in what we do, and that's why we're kind of like small and very work very closely with our clients. But yeah, we base level, we ghostwrite and we manage people's LinkedIn profiles for them.
Yeah, it sounds like in a very simplified summary, it would be you will help companies, or specifically people in companies who are very technical companies and are looking to market their products, or um, you know put out there the latest research or possibilities in the future. You're helping them write those things and promote it online in a very digestible way based on the audience, I guess, whether
Yeah,
they're trying to advertise to their existing customers or pulling customers in a very specialized industry, or to try to explain it to like the regular person. For example, if I wanted to learn about the latest imaging technology and I know nothing about it, if they're making a post for me as an audience, you would help them say like, oh, this is too much technical jargon, let's cut back on it, something like that.
yeah, exactly. It's all about positioning individuals as experts and as highly credible experts. And so that's kind of like my I went to school for English literature. My team consists primarily, actually, like our editor in chief and our strategy officer. They're both anthropologists. And I think like what we've really pulled together is a team of people who are very good at storytelling and at understanding complicated things, um, and learning those quickly from other people. So it's kind of like niche, but that I've learned works really well, like to, especially when you're starting out, to be in a small corner allows you to be a lot more specialized and kind of consistent than to try and do everything all at once.
Cool. Yeah, so we think we can slowly wrap things up. Yeah,
Sure.
thanks again. um, it was cool to get your perspective on running a business, the a little bit of woo woo stuff we got into, but not so much that it's like overpowering, which is great. Very
I could
applicable
really go
stuff.
there. I could lean into that if we wanted to. But
We'll
no,
save
I'll
that for
save.
another time.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
save that.
but yeah, so yeah, all the best with everything you got going on, and um, yeah, I'll just throw a couple of quick, short answer questions, I guess. I don't know. I'm just
Yeah,
trying this thing. I'm thinking of what to put on Instagram as a clip. So,
cool.
uh, but before we get into that, anything else you wanted to say before we wrap up?
No, I think it's really cool that you're doing this, and I think there probably is. I don't know. I think there's a lifestyle where you get to work 4 to 6 hours a week, make all the income you want, and run side projects and have that feel more connected than it probably like. It's probably hard to imagine how connected it could feel to actually have all of that together all
Mhm.
at once. But I think it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, 4 to 6 hours a week would be excellent, but I'm okay with per day too.
Oh, okay. Sorry, that's what I meant. 4 to 6 hours a week would be great. Yeah.
um, okay, so okay, a couple quick questions. What's the last great movie you saw?
Oh man, I watched two this weekend. One was called The Alpinist. It's a documentary about a climber. I think it's better than Free Solo and The Dawn Wall. It's about a Canadian guy, so you should check that out. And then the other one I watched was called, I think it was called The Fear of the Dog, The Something of the Dog. It's with Benedict Cumberbatch, and it was a Western, and that was also like so well done. So both of those are good.
I think it's called The Power of the Dog,
The
and it's on
Power of the Dog.
Netflix.
Yeah,
I
watch
haven't
that
seen
one.
it, but it is on my watch list. Okay, and what's What are you reading right now as far as a book?
I'm reading two. One's called Eunoia by Christian Bach. It's a collection of poetry where every section he only uses one vowel per section. So like the entire first section is written only with the vowel A, and like subsequent ones. And then the other book I'm reading right now is called an edu or The Education of an Idealist by Samantha Power. And that Samantha Power was the ambassador to the United Nations, the United States during Obama's first term as president.
Cool. And last question. Um, do you have a personal or professional goal you want to share this year or something you're looking forward to?
After all my talking about like the cold hard realities of running a business, big professional goal for this year is to have my last draft, my business, be financially stable enough with our like revenue projections and actual costs that I don't worry about uh, money as much as I do today. And so that's my big goal for this year.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me to do this. This is really cool. Good luck with everything.
Cool. Cool.